Welcome, everybody, to the Table Rush Talk Show. I'm your host, Mischa. In this episode, I had the pleasure of interviewing Jeffrey Klubeck, the author of The Integrity Game and founder of Get A Klu Inc., and that's Klu spelled K-L-U. Jeff shares his insights on the importance of integrity in personal and professional growth. He introduces his 10-point model for enhancing integrity, making accountability non-threatening, and integrating behavior with values. Jeff discusses how integrity can transform productivity and engagement in teams and organizations. Tune in to learn actionable strategies for boosting your integrity and accountability. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a ton of fun. And I want to dive right into it. We had such a great sort of pre-call conversation, and we started going deep on the things that you do, what you've done. One of the things that was so powerful was you were on the seminar circuit where you've literally, you said, traveled around the world twice. First one direction, then back the other direction, supporting speakers on the seminar circuit. But before we get into all that, oh my gosh, I'm just so excited. Such great pre-conversation. But you've got your book, The Integrity Game, Soft Skills for Strong Leaders, 10 points to, tell me about it. What's going on with this book? Let's dive into it.
Yeah, thanks. Well, first of all, the first self-published book I ever did was called Get A Klu in 52, and now I've done 4 of those, and they're tips books. That's where we're promoting soft skills. So Get A Klu in 52 for coaches, Get A Klu in 52 for speakers, which is what I'm working through this year as of the recording. The original Get A Klu. So I'll create 5 categories, at least 10 tips in each category. So I've got a year's worth of tips, and I'll go onto my social media. I'll read a tip, stream it into social, and that keeps me visible. And it's also a nice, a corpus of content, right? Because then those recordings could get transcribed and cut up into reels, and so all of that's happening. And then the integrity game is different. The integrity game is a parable, and it introduces a 10-point model for personal and professional growth. And integrity, it's kind of funny, Mischa. I don't know if you've experienced this, but integrity is one of these words where people find themselves to be really good at it, but everybody else sucks. It's kind of like, parenting or driving.
Yeah.
So in my experience, people usually only use the word integrity when they're either accusing somebody else of not having it or lying, telling us that they do. And like going out of the way to say, I have integrity. It's like if somebody goes out of their way to say that, that's a red flag, right? For me, I wrote the book Integrity Game. You want to know why? Because I want more integrity in my life, right? And a lot of times our work is a product of what we need. Isn't that interesting? And so I'm ready to be honest and vulnerable. I'm ready to make it fun and easy to look within. I'm ready to increase my integrity, but what I had to do first is expand our understanding of what integrity is. Most people have a judgment-based understanding of what integrity is. You didn't do what you said you were going to do, or you didn't do the right thing when nobody was watching. You don't do the same thing, and everybody's just spring-loaded like a mousetrap, ready to blame others.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I need to do is take that judgmental vibration out of it and just say, hey, look, integration. It starts with the same 6 letters: integrate, integrity, right? So it's just integrated or not, together or not. So we start to break it down. Is your word together with your behavior? Is your word integrated with your values, morals, and ethics, right? And it's your values, not mine. But a lot of people are projecting their own values, morals, and ethics onto other people. And so we want to get out of the vibrational jam. And then the other thing too is, like, I'll challenge people. And I know you got a question on the tip of your tongue. I'll wrap this up for a second. It's like, I'll challenge people. It's like, okay, Mr. Judgmental person, judging somebody else to need more, not have enough integrity. Okay, even if I agreed with you that they don't have integrity, or they don't have enough, or they need more, even if I agreed with you, how would they get more integrity? If you were responsible for making sure they improve their integrity, how would you go about it? Would you just continue to judge them, or would you go to the water cooler and talk to somebody else about their lack of integrity? Or would you work with them? And did you have anything actionable? Do you have anything do you have anything stepwise? Do you have anything? So there's a space in the marketplace, in my opinion, for my 10-point model, and it's still in its infancy. But I got a lot of excitement about how the integrity game, understanding the 10 points on the model, treating them as question sets, working to draft your answers to the questions, making sure your answers empower versus dilute each other, and then sharing your answers with a certified coach that you can be held accountable to what your answers are. Now I could get to say, look, there's a chance, Mischa, at a high level that the integrity game could make accountability non-threatening. Then what would happen? Well, that's at the highest level. That's what I'm trying to do, is make accountability non-threatening.
I'd love that. Make accountability non-threatening. I'm writing it down. And
Yeah.
so we're going to have some, go ahead.
Yeah. Do you have an imagination for what would happen to our cultures, our teams, our productivity, our output, our, engagement, our job satisfaction, the reduction of kicking the dog at home after swallowing our pride at work if accountability was non-threatening?
Mm, 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 mm. I just think holding space for the listeners to contemplate that is so powerful,
Thank you.
right? Because that's such a juicy question. I'm just kind of getting the chills. I think so often in podcast land, all of us are powering through, where someone listening right now might, from a step back view, go, this is a faux pas, too much silence. Anybody following, anybody watching, listening, go to tigarena.com, tigarena.com. That stands for the Integrity Game Arena.com. And you can follow along, see what we're talking about, perhaps order a copy of the book, things like that. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that now. But let's get back into it here.
Yes, sir.
So if are your words, you said, is your word integrated with your actions? And then you said another thing in there. Is it integrated with your actions or it was integrated
Yeah.
with
Is your act, are your, well, here's the fun part about it. Like, imagine, let me can take you on a visual. Imagine, seminar. Imagine I'm speaking to, 200 entrepreneurs.
okay.
And I say, hey, by show of hands, how many of you believe you have integrity? 100% of the hands go up, right? And then I get to be funny and say, all right, now repeat after me. I do solemnly swear not to shoot the messenger in 45 minutes. Right? Okay. Now, hang on. I don't want to offend anybody. I want good ratings. I want to be invited back next year for the next gig, right? So before I offend anybody and suggest that you don't have any integrity, let's make sure we're talking about the same thing. What is it? And then I'll hold the space, just like you did for your listeners. And what is it? And now, as a public speaker, that I want somebody on the left side of the room to answer, and I want somebody on the right side of the room to answer, and I want my anchors, and I want names, and I want interaction, and I want to show my thinking on my feet, and I want all of that. But from a content perspective, one answer, there's always two answers. And this goes back to what you were asking me about. So I reset the context. One answer I get is, be your word. Do what you say you're going to do. Okay, cool. Let's pin that on the board. Anybody else? And I'll make the joke like, oh, did she take your answer? You were going to say that one? Okay. Right?
Yes.
And then anybody else have an understanding of what integrity is? And then somebody else will say, do the same thing when nobody's watching that you would when somebody is watching. Right. And like you're doing right now, people will nod, or sometimes people go, yeah, and I hear the harumphs and and it's fun to play with that energy in the room, right? The validation. It's like, okay, we've got these two answers. Do what you say you're going to do and do the right thing regardless of who's watching. Anybody else? And everybody's like, no, that's it. Right. Every now and then, I get a different answer, and sometimes they're way ahead of the game. And it's like, hey, that's the advanced class. Stay with the beginners for a little bit. We'll work with you later. And other times, somebody's just like trying to be a schmo, like to get their voice heard. And it's like, well, isn't that the same thing as be your word? And they go, oh yeah, I guess it is. All right, participation points. But anyway, so the deal is, here's the thing, Mischa. What we like about these two answers, first of all, is that we can see there is an integration. When we do what we said we would do, We are integrating our behavior with our word. And then when we do quote the right thing, regardless of who's watching, there's an integration. We're integrating behavior with the value, with the righteousness, with the moral, or with the ethic, or the principle, or the platitude. Okay. So here's what I like to, this is the first piece in the keynote when I'm delivering the keynote, is the thought leadership is, guess what? In both answers, both understandings of integrity, there is an integration, a coming together of at least two things. But the embarrassing part is, despite the fact that they start with the same 6 letters, not one person I've ever asked in the history of the integrity game, right? Not one person I've ever asked has used the word integration in their answer. Everybody is sitting in judgment of others. You didn't do what you said you were going to do. You didn't do the right thing. Nobody simply says, well, integrity is the adjective to describe the state of integration. You know, when 2 or more things are integrated, it is said that there's integrity there, integration, integrity. So I just want to get the objective, value neutral, non-judgmental understanding. There's an integration of word with behavior, integration of behavior with values. So then the second thing we like, Mischa, are you ready? This is my favorite. The second thing we like about those 2 answers is that behavior shows up in both integrations, doesn't it? Word with behavior and behavior with values. So if you're going to slow this down, this is the thing that I ask people to write down when they're live with me in the room for the keynote. Behavior is the evidence of our integrity. It's not, well, I was just trying to, well, I was only going to, well, I didn't mean to, none of that. We judge ourselves by intention, but we walk around judging everybody else's behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I ask, do you have integrity? You're judging yourself. When you raise your hand and the whole 100% of the room raises their hand, and I say, do you have integrity? They're judging themselves by their behavior. But if I put 5 coworkers, colleagues, community members, in the room and say, does this person have integrity? I bet they might have a slightly different answer. I bet it might be like, well, some. And that's the truth of it, man. It's a trick question, Mischa. We all have some.
Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you, we all need more.
I love it. I don't have it in front of me, but I had a new topic idea for guest speaking on podcasts, and it's the power of personal accountability, but it was a personal inventory, the power of personal inventory.
Okay, now you're speaking my language, because that's what the integrity game is. It's to take a look within. And
Yeah.
answer questions for yourself that you've been avoiding answering. And so that's what tricks you into like recognizing faults in everybody else, because it's easier than looking within. So
Yeah.
this is exactly what we're talking about. I'm trying to make it easy and fun to look within. I love what you're saying, man.
Yeah.
Personal inventory.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in my own life of ways that, just to riff on what you're talking about here, um, I got clean and sober at a super young age and have managed one day at a time to have straight line sobriety. So for 37 years, too much
Congratulations.
information perhaps, but yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. But part of the recovery modality is part of the what we do in the recovery community is this idea of that personal inventory. So that was going to be one opportunity for me to speak on it, was like, hey, my first major inventory via 12-step modalities, right? Because you do this personal inventory of how am I resentful? How am I, what we like to say is trust God, clean house, work with others. So you've got the clean house, and what's my part? I guess is what I'm trying to get to. It's like, what's my part in the situation?
Yeah.
Which is what you're speaking to. It's so easy for us to judge everybody else,
Right.
but in reality, it's like the power is in what's my part here? What's
Yeah.
my 100% of my 5%, right?
If you knew your side of the street was clean, you wouldn't ever judge a side of the street in any other condition. You would simply observe, have compassion for it. You'd be curious about when it's going to get clean or how you can help it get clean, or you enjoy the process of how they clean it, if it's any different from how you clean it. But like, if my side of the street is clean, I'm not threatened or off put or triggered by any other sides of streets. right? And so in other words, yeah, we're talking about the same thing, but here's the jam is accountability will always feel like an attack when we aren't ready to be 100% responsible for our behavior. So my book isn't called The Accountability Game. Nobody'd read it. We'd be like, oh, I'm not ready for that. Clearly that book's for somebody else. It's called The Integrity Game because everybody wants to associate themselves with integrity. And so I make it playful. It's a business parable. I'm jovial. I'm humor based. It's an easy story to read. So it's like the concept that I have in mind is Trojan horse. If we're going to change the world by helping people look within to their personal inventories instead of going for the jugular with everybody else in the world. Like, so for me, like Mischa, I say, why go for the jugular when you could go for the hugular?
I love Oh my God. Or how about this? You know, yeah, I'll relate it to recovery is I needed to literally be threatened by long-term jail by Judge Rank when I was 17 years old
Mm-hmm.
to you've got to learn how to start taking accountability or get into integrity or get into alignment or
What a gift.
think, yeah, what a gift, right? And what you are offering everybody is, hey, you don't need that iteration V1 of my podcast, by the way, was called Bitch Slap, the accelerated the accelerated path to peace. Right. So it's like we get these bitch slaps by the universe of like, dude, you gotta change. You gotta grow up. You gotta get in integrity and alignment, take accountability, all these things.
Yeah.
And if I'm
Yeah.
hearing you correctly, you're like, hey man, let's you said huggability or how did you say it?
I'm jovial, right? Because I
Yeah.
believe that what we're talking about is heavy. So if we don't make it
Heavy.
fun, if we don't make it entertaining, if we don't make it easy, digestible, I like to say my last name's Klubeck. So I say if we don't lubricate the process, right? And so I come up with these silly dad jokey, wordsmithy kind of funny things. And one of them is, hey, there's enough people in the world going for the jugular. I prefer to go for the hugular.
I love it. So you
I
to
own I own
me
the hugular.com. I haven't done anything with it yet, but
soon,
yeah.
soon. Um, you're offering people an opportunity to raise their bottom. So let's just talk about any of us who are 40, 50 years old, or
Yeah.
perhaps furiously heading towards midlife crisis or identity crisis or into or
Yeah.
out of divorce. Not that, I mean, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but there's different levels, right? You don't need to get to divorce to have that sort of midlife crisis moment. But you're offering people an opportunity to save themselves from that almost. It's like, hey, start getting into integrity now, take accountability now before perhaps you have to have your judge rank moment. I'll also say that what's so powerful is we hear so much talk these days about living in alignment, living in your integrity, living in your
Yeah. Live
purpose,
your best life. Step
live
into
your
your
best life.
power. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is like a legit way to take all the fluff out of it and be like, well, here's
Pop,
actionably
pop, pop,
how
pop,
you do
pop,
that.
pop, pop. Yeah, it's an actionable tech, and it's still evolving. I'm hoping it gets even more actionable and exercisable and activity workshop based, right? So we're
Yeah.
evolving. It's coming out of the conceptual, but there's a workbook. And by the way, it's very simple at this point, right? Playing the integrity game. If you want to play the game, all you need to do to start playing the game is to understand the 10 question sets. Okay. Then advanced level play, or you start to get seasoned, right? You're not a rookie anymore. When you start to draft your own answers to the question sets. Now you're heading for an all-star game, right? Or postseason honors if you actually have answers to all 10 question sets and you can assess if your answers integrate, if they empower each other, or if your answers are diluting or sabotaging each other. And then you want to get mastery, you want to own the game, then you're courageous enough to advance level play is sharing your answers with an external accountability source that will hold you accountable to your answers.
Mm. That accountability piece is so powerful.
But it's your answers. I'm not going to tell you, Mischa, what your purpose is. You're going to play the game. Tell me what your purpose is. And now I'll make sure that everything that you do integrates with that purpose.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
To your own self, to thine own self be true.
Yeah.
Like
But people
you're
are so afraid of accountability or failure or so many other things, they'll avoid answering the questions.
Yeah,
You understand?
no, I do. I
Yeah.
think
Go ahead.
I think tension of life forces these reflective moments, or the willingness to play the game, or the willingness to buy the book, or somebody
Yeah.
could be listening or watching right
Yeah.
now.
I
Oh, go
hear
ahead.
it. It doesn't have to be that way. Don't wait until rock bottom. Never mind that it's like probably one of the best places on earth to try to rise from because you got something to push off of and you got all that leverage. Never mind
Yeah.
that rock bottom is a really productive and gift-based place, right?
Oh my gosh, right?
Okay. Hey,
Love it.
if the swimming pool is 20 feet deep and you're floating around at 10 feet and I'm at the bottom, who's going to get to the top quicker? You know I am. Because you got to
Yeah.
generate all your power and get up there, but I can just shoot up the top and later I'll pass you by in a heartbeat. So let's not discount the judge moment and the 17 and the bitch slap and the rock bottom. There's
Oh my gosh, right?
there's a place in our worlds for all of that. But are you ready, Data? But it doesn't have to be that way.
Doesn't have to be that way. Hey, I want to address one thing before we move on and
Yeah.
keep going on this riff that we're doing here, which is epic and amazing. But speak to the fact that most times when I am looking at somebody else and saying you are out of integrity,
Oof.
or judging that person or doing that, it is I am 100% convinced it is just a mirror of my own insecurities, and a mirror of my own. It's a reflection of what I need to change,
Yeah, you're
sand it
projecting.
off. You put absolutely 100%, even in the most extreme circumstances. So the political cycle is coming up, and so there'll be lots
Mm-hmm.
of finger pointing, and friends will become enemies because someone likes
Oh.
Trump or someone likes Biden, and they are
Who are those guys?
yeah, I don't know.
I haven't heard about either of those guys in anyway.
Yeah, right. I know. I should have said somebody, but someone that wouldn't date this. So if you're listening to
Yeah.
this 10 years from now, just know that there was a Trump and a Biden, and it was madness. But what I'm trying to say is that someone will take the extreme of a Trump, for example, and
Mhm.
go, no, Trump is the embodiment of evil in their minds. And so that way, that discounts the reflection piece or the projection piece. It's like, well, no, it's up to you. If you think that Trump is suppressing people or oppressive or forcing his agenda to the extreme,
Or if you think Biden's doing that.
or if you think Biden's doing that, absolutely. Or absolutely. I don't mean Trump's just so easy to pick. So
Well, can we take this a different way, right?
yeah,
Like, just get it out of the way. Truth be told, like, I'm not voting for Trump. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
okay, I say that to say this. I can make the argument that nobody on the planet has more integrity than he does.
I
And
love
then
it.
these people that you're talking about, like, what? Trump, integrity, and all the
Yeah,
stuff that you're talking about. Like, hang on a
yeah,
second. In my model of the integrity game, Trump answers his own questions.
yeah.
I don't answer Trump's questions. Trump decides what his purpose is. Trump decides what his gifts and competitive advantages are. Trump decides what his potential vision, mission, and objectives are. Trump sets his goals. Trump chooses his strategies, tactics, and resources. Trump has his own relationship with his word. It's not for me to decide. But once I know what his answers are, now I know what to hold Trump accountable to. And I don't know if there's anybody on the planet whose from a percentage perspective, 1000% of Trump's marbles are rolling towards all of his answers. That guy doesn't deviate even like one strand of hair off of his path. You want to talk about structural integrity, alignment, retrofit? There is nothing that comes along that will blow him off of his game. Now, I'm not telling you that his morals aren't my morals, his ethics aren't my ethics. He's a card carrying member of this, and I might be a card carrying member of that. But you want to just talk about getting out of judgment for a second and just talking about the integrity game,
Love it.
right? Well, who on the planet is integrating their behavior with their answers to their questions more than Trump?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I'm not saying he's a good person. I'm not saying he deserves your vote. I'm not saying he's presidential. I'm not saying I have any idea how on earth somebody that's, convicted of rape and indictments and felon, like all this stuff. I have no idea how somebody that's been busted for stealing from charity and frauding people with a university and having to pay $85 million to a sexual abuse thing and has 4 indictments. And I don't know how anybody like that is even on the ballot. But I'm not going to sit here in judgment of that person. And I can argue that that person has more integrity than anybody else on the planet. Because hey, from the integrity game perspective, if a building, bridge, or a tunnel, Mischa, a building, bridge, or a tunnel will do what without structural integrity?
Collapse.
When what?
When it's when it's people go over it, through it, pressure is
Any,
applied to it.
yeah, it'll collapse under pressure tests without structural integrity. So we need good foundation. We need to be well built. We need to be well maintained, and we need to be retrofit from time to time in order to have the resilience to withstand. Now, first of all, if we don't have structural integrity, now we can't reach our potential. Now we can't do what we're supposed to do, what we're made to do. What you follow?
Yeah.
Because so I wait a second. $83 million, 4 indictments, January 6th storming of the Capitol. Hush money paying. A guy hasn't. None of that's blown him over.
None of it's blown. Hey, there's a new $450 million judgment that they're holding to him. He's
Yeah,
got to come up with the money. There's
the
that
New
too.
York fraud. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I think that, which brings up another question you can speak to, and then we'll get back on track.
I
So
just want to finish this thought. Do you remember
yeah,
the day?
please
You
do.
remember the day where somebody would say the wrong thing, and then I'm sorry because of my comments, I'm dropping out of the race. Do you remember
Yeah.
that? I mean, I'm in my 50s too, right? Nothing. Not a 5 mile an hour wind. Like no offense to anybody that suffered in this, but an airplane can fly into Trump's building and that thing will keep standing. There's so when you understand, I'm not saying that I vote for him. I'm not saying that I agree with any of his policies, ideas, rhetoric, his communication. I'm not saying any of that. What I am able to argue, though, and I'm not promoting Trump, I'm promoting the integrity game, is that if I can practice what I preach and put judgment over there for a minute and just ask, does this person have integrity? Well, I would have to say yeah. And I would have to say probably more so than most people on the planet, because nothing has gotten that guy off of his foundation. Nothing has got him to waver from his plan. And 100% of his behaviors are integrated with his answers to his questions. They may not be my answers to my questions, but he's living his truth. He's blah, 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 blah.
Now that you've sort of closed the loop on that thought, it shines a light on two things for me. One,
Mm-hmm.
if I think he's oppressive or doing all these things, it's up to me to figure out, well, how am I that way with my family, friends, work associates, whatever? Like
Yeah.
clearly, if that is an affront to me, that I am
If it triggers
projecting.
you, it's because, yeah, the only reason you recognize it in others is because it's inside of you.
Right. And then also, if I'm like, Trump is out of integrity, because that's a thing. He's a maniac. People will say he's out of integrity because he's not doing what I want him to do or acting how I want to act. Really, it's just shining a light on the fact that, well, maybe I'm out of integrity
Mm-hmm.
more than I'd like to admit.
That's
Right.
right. Yeah, it's
And then
so every second that you spend judging Trump is you're stealing from a second you could be retrofitting yourself.
retrofitting yourself so good.
Oh, dude, have you ever done the road rage thing? I have joviality back to it's like the hugular thing. Like, have you ever been on the freeway and road rage and f bombs, and you pull up to the side at the stoplight and somebody says "f you," so he says "f you." I don't say go f yourself. I say go retrofit yourself. You think what? Hey
Oh
man,
my
hey,
gosh.
hey man, go retrofit yourself. And they go, what?
Hey, I'm
That's
too
like
old
a
for I guess so good. I'm too old for road rage now too,
yeah.
because I'll tell you, a few years ago, 4 or 5, I don't know, some 5 to 5, 6, 7 years ago, I was raging at somebody, and this was a young-ish 20-year-old legit male human, and I was like, I am way out of my league. I was like, I am so sorry, my friend. Like, I was like, I'm too. Yeah, I'm in over my head on that. Anyway, what was I going to say? I think, and maybe you can speak to this or not, but I think the lighter we get, the more integrity we have ourselves, the more we're able to, yeah, have that integrity within ourselves, do those retrofitting practices, the less judgmental we can be of Trump's path too. So it's like we can enjoy God's creation in Trump and what the universe or your higher power, however you want to say it, has Trump doing. And we can detach from that outcome too, right? Because there's like seeing him as integral or being in integrity, but then there's also like, and that's okay that he is who he is, and that's his destiny according to the universe or his genes or whatever.
Well, I'm not saying it's okay. You
Okay,
follow?
sure.
I'm saying it's integrated.
Yeah,
He's on brand, he's on point, he's on message, he's on platform, he's on all the time.
yeah,
So I'm not, again, I'm being very careful. Like I can tell you my political opinion. By the way,
yeah,
overarchingly, I think red and blue are two wings of the same bird.
absolutely.
But we're seeing stuff in our political landscape that we've never seen before because of how powerful he is. And I'm not saying righteous per se
Yeah.
by my values, by my answers to my questions. But when I'm playing the integrity game, I have to look at that phenomena judgment free and just understand it for what it is. Right. But, we all have to protect ourselves. We are in a democracy. Elections are important. They do have consequences. And so everybody should get educated and get out there and vote and make your good decision and make your contribution. But otherwise, get back to retrofitting yourself instead of judging others.
Hey, I love it. So good. The integrity game, soft skills for strong leaders. You've got a 10-point model. Uh, so I think you've literally been paid to travel around the world to speak, to do these what did you call them, the seminars, like the big Tony Robbins style seminars with multiple people where coaching is being sold and people are getting elevated and all this sort of stuff. Like you have been deep in that. You've been
Yeah.
paid to teach people how to speak. You're still paid to help people learn how to speak on stage, do all these things, and I'm probably missing a whole bunch. I just want to paint
Yeah,
the
you've only got
that
about 10% of it, Mischa. You step it up a little bit. We pick up the pace a little bit. You've only got 10% of my. No, I'm joking.
yeah. So you've worked with high level people as well. So so we've got the integrity game, soft skills for strong leaders. Let's dive into the benefits of integrity, I guess is what I'm trying to get to, and paint the picture that you have a valid you're like you have the social proof, the validation to say here's the benefits of integrity and why you should jump into this. Bam.
Well, yeah. Well, integrity. Just speaking for myself, right? Speaking for myself, the I had to play my own game, right? And so I released the book in April of 22. And then it was like it went to #1 on Amazon bestseller. We pushed hard and got everybody we knew under the sun to buy it on the same day. You know how that goes.
Yep.
But I was like surprised. I was just hoping to get on the top 100 just to make it onto the list, just to say I'm a bestseller. But I looked and it was like I had to rub my eyes. It was #1. So we sat at #1 for a couple of days. That was like really cool. I was surprised. But then it was like, then what? And I said, well, how about I do a group coaching experience around the 10-point model? And in fall of 2022, we did the 90-day challenge. And 10 points, that's 2.5 months. You put an intro week and a concluding week on top of that. Now you've got 12 sessions. It's around 90 days, right? 90-day challenge. And essentially what I did was I found subject matter experts that I could interview on each of the 10 points on the model. So now instead of being the expert on all 10 points, what I am is I created the model and now I'm finding experts that can help me go deeper on the points. Like who can help me talk about and I'll just can run through the 10 points, for example. Are you ready? I got to answer your original question. Hang on. So,
Benefits. Oh, go ahead.
so
Sorry.
the idea is as I was taking people through the integrity, week one was the intro week. Then week two, we went into weeks 2 through 11 were the 10 points on the model. So when I would do an interview, I would interview one or more subject matter experts about that topic. And we would talk about what's the big deal here, what prevents people from taking action here, and what do you recommend from your experience? And then I would do the homework and I would populate my answers to integrity game questions. And then I would post my workbook in the Facebook group for everybody to see it. Like, hey, everybody, here's the recap from week one. Thanks to so-and-so who we interviewed. Here were the nuggets and the takeaways. And here are my answers to questions of purpose. Here's my draft answers. I'm playing the game. I'm vulnerable. And you can all have access to my workbook and see it. And then the next week, I have experts and do the whole thing. So I can end up sharing it with you. It's powerful. So I was going through every week in a disciplined way. And it was my practice for those 12 weeks is where I would, review my notes from the session. And I interviewed the people. I would review my notes and create, all right, what's the question prompting? Who are my subject matter experts? What are recommended readings around this topic? What were nuggets from the interview that I did? And what are my answers to questions of, and now here, purpose, gifts, potential, goals, strategies, tactics, and resources, word and commitment, taking action, proactive learning, accumulation of accomplishment, and ultimately service. So those are just very quick overview of the 10 points on the model. And if you'll allow me to say this, Mischa, remember back earlier in the interview when we were talking about do the right thing when nobody's watching or do what you say you're going to do, right? Those are good because they let me thought lead and get out of vibrational judgment perspective on integrity, but they fall short. That's why I created, it's not enough. They're good, but they're not enough is what I'm trying to say. Because if I said, Mischa, right, you talked about sobriety and everything. What if I told you that I was going to drink 17 beers before our interview, and then I drank 17 beers before our interview? I will have done what I said I was going to do, but could I claim integrity? No. We absolutely know that I cannot, right? I did what I said I was going to do, right? What if I said I was going to sleep on the couch for 20 out of every 24 hours, and then I did that? You understand? So on that
You're,
level, being your word and doing what you say you're going to do isn't enough because you could just you follow. There's other things we need to connect to. Then
yeah,
on the other side too. I don't know if you have kids and I don't know what your faith is, but it's like you do the right thing. Do the right thing when nobody's watching. What's the right thing and says who? I mean, back to politics and Biden and Trump, 30% of our country can't even agree on who the president is. You don't tell me they're going to agree on what the right thing is.
hey, I'm thinking, there's like momentary integrity. So I'm gonna go drink too much coffee, and I go drink too much coffee. I'm in integrity.
Yeah.
But on a broader scope, if God's purpose for me or the universe's purpose, if you maybe expand it out a little bit, it's like, oh, wait a minute. No, you are not being in integrity with your
You got it.
purpose or
Yeah, well,
right.
that's the lead rung on the ladder, if you will. Purpose is the first thing we touch. Start with why. I mean, I didn't make this up. Simon Sinek, start with why. Know your purpose. You teach public speaking. What's your purpose? To entertain, inform, or persuade. That's the first decision you got to make before you construct your speech. Purpose has always been important, but I just put it in the pole position on my model, right? And so back to like do this, so here's what I'm getting at. What I want to say to your listeners or just share with you, Mischa, is that sometimes we believe, like, and I would do this when I'm doing this in a seminar and I'm doing public speaking, I'll ask the audience, how many of you believe that, without overthinking it, how many of you believe that time is money? And everybody raises their hand. And then I'll say, all right, well, how many of you believe that patience is a virtue? And there's a disconnect, right? Why? How many of you believe that if you never quit, you never lose? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Never give up. Yeah, never quit, never lose. You can't beat me if I don't quit. Yeah, yeah. All right. How many of you know that you better know when to cut your losses, right? And then back to Biden and Trump, back the blue, back the blue. Oh, when Black Lives Matters is raining, you back the blue. But when it's January 6th, it's like, you follow, right? So we have conflicting success principles. Success principles can conflict each other. So right and wrong, good and bad, clean and dirty, civil savage, all of these judgment-based things, they're not static and set and universal for everybody. It's a moving target. Like you'd say, hey, never lie, never lie, never lie. Always tell the truth, always tell the truth, right? Oh, unless it's Christmas time and you're going to put an elf on the shelf for 26 days and then guilt your kids into good behavior. Then lie to them every day. You with me? So
I'm
my
with you.
point is, yeah, my point is word with behavior is good, but not enough. And word with values is good, but not enough. That's why I created 10 things that I want to integrate. There's 10 things I want to bring together. And word and behavior is in there in the middle of the model somewhere, right? But when we get to purpose and gifts and potential and who are we serving and all of these other factors, now we can retrofit ourselves.
So powerful, so strong. You said at the beginning of our interview, what we teach, we need to learn ourselves, or something along those lines, which now implies that you were out of integrity some way, and you had a tension point in your life that brought this about. Yes, what is that?
Well, what I said was, without getting into specifics, although I can find specifics, plenty of them, because love is the willingness to be vulnerable, and I'm nothing if not that. What I said was just the blanket recognition that I know this book exists, not because I'm the master at integrity for everybody else on the planet. I know it exists because I want more in my life. So my work reflects what I want from myself. And so without a specific anecdote of where I've been out of integrity, or I mean, how much time you got? I'm a human being, right? And it's not going to do me any good to go back in the past and undo things that have been done, or unsay things that were said, or undecide things that were decided. What I really need to do is forgive myself and stop judging others and take advantage of every second left in front of me.
I
Here and
love that.
now in my future. Like, it's like, here's what I'm getting at is this, man. It's like, it's a trick question. Do you have integrity? And everybody raises their hand. Have you heard? Let me put it to you this way, Mischa. You're such a, like professionally well-traveled person in this space, personal professional growth and everything that we're talking about. Have you heard it said, and can you maybe even finish the sentence? Like, if watch this, right? If you are not growing, you are.
Growing. If you're not growing, you're what, dying, I
You got
guess,
it.
or
Yeah, I
yeah,
was right. Thank you for making me. I was right about you, Mischa. No.
yes.
So what I like to say is, if we're not integrating, we're disintegrating. So to the degree that it's possible, and by the way, on some level, I look up to Trump in this regard, because I am willing to make sacrifices and compromises on my jam to be part of communities and families and cohorts. And do you understand? I am willing to compromise because I care about other people. But sometimes I look up to a guy like Trump that's like absolutely no compromise whatsoever, absolutely no budge. Every second of that person's life, every decision, every word, every thought is integrated with what they think is important for them. Does that make sense? Now, I don't necessarily agree with the choices, but I admire the percentage of action and behavior that has integration.
You know what's interesting?
Does that make sense to you?
It totally does. And I'll tell you, this is my perception of Trump too. And I'll just, I, I look at, I look at him from the integrity standpoint that you're speaking of. And so he's clearly integrated to whatever he believes his calling is or his destiny is on this planet.
Yeah.
I look
But
at him and I, huh?
or whoever's funding his existence. I'm sorry.
However you
Go
want to
ahead.
say it.
Yeah.
I look at him and I don't ever see unhappiness, if that makes sense. Like I look at him and I don't like so many of us are like are just happy, the pursuit of happiness. And I look at Trump and I go, doesn't seem like a miserable character to me.
It's interesting. I I'm not going to disagree with that. What's interesting to me is that I don't look at somebody and see a happy guy either.
I see, yeah, that's another great way to say it.
When
Like,
when he does his dance, he's not happy. He's just trying to get votes. I don't think he's a happy dude. I think he's angry, bitter, confrontational, judgmental, competitive, all these things. I don't see a happy guy.
but I'll put it to you this way. I think he's happy in his unhappiness.
Hmm. Well, we're all emotionally addicted to something.
Well, so I would even say it. I would even challenge that I don't know. I don't know. I just look at him and go, yeah, I mean, again, depending on how I honestly just watch him and I was like, yeah, he's happy to be in the space he's in. He's happy that the 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 crap is hitting the fan because it gives him that platform that he loves to shine on. And he gets to do the things that he loves to do for good or bad. And I think the illusion is that we look at a guy like Trump and go, well, he's full of vitriol or bitterness. And so therefore he must be unhappy. And it's like, no, that's his actual happy place. And he gets to be there a lot. So I don't know. Again, I'm not stripping out complete judgment of whether he should or should not be doing the things that he's doing. But I don't mean to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah,
But go
it's
ahead. You
it's
can speak
it's
to
an
that for a
interesting
sec.
conversation. I just think one extreme or the other. The couple of images that we were able to get from him in a courtroom, he didn't look happy there. So,
No, for sure.
to your point, when any of us are doing what we want to do, we're going to look happy, whether we are or not. If we're doing right, and if we're stuck doing things that we do not want to do, we're not going to look happy, right? And so my
Yeah.
my point though is, so many people are being blown around like a feather in the wind,
Yeah.
right? And so the idea is when something comes along, like we're either playing our chess game or we're a pawn in somebody else's game.
Yeah. I'm
And
going to
so
challenge you. Oh, go
yeah.
ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, it's just like when something comes along and I have to either say yes or no to it, my yes or no should be based on my answers to my integrity game. And the things that come along either integrate with my game or they do not. And so it should empower me to say yes or no, right? And so I
I'm
think like just from a percentage perspective, Trump is batting at a high average in terms of the decisions that he makes that integrate with his game.
for sure. And I'm going to just one last thing in regards to this for the moment. Um, the illusion is that he is unhappy because he frames your picture of unhappiness. You see a picture and maybe he's got a scowl or this or that, and you're like, he's clearly unhappy.
He
Well, he
loves
might not
that.
be
He
getting
loves
what he,
scowling.
yeah, right? Like he's in his happy place. That's it, right? But anyway, which I think even more validates what you're talking about.
Yeah.
He is in integrity with who he wants and believes he should be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anything that comes along that doesn't fit his jam, it's gone. It
yeah,
doesn't stick. It doesn't invite. It doesn't dilute. It doesn't attach. If it doesn't integrate with his jam, it's gone.
yeah,
And yeah, so I mean, that's just one way of looking at integrity. It's politically, for my own leanings and how I think about like it's just like I've got kids, right? Hey kids, look at the communication style of these people. Who do you want to be like? It's a no-brainer, right? But that's my integrity game on my parenting. That's not judging whether or not that person has integrity. I think I can make the argument all day long, even though I have never voted for him, would never vote for him. And if I'm allowed to say this, I hope everybody listening thinks twice about who they're voting for. That's not, it's not the purpose to be political. But I can make the argument that perhaps nobody under the sun on the face of this planet has more internal, self-authored integrity than Trump. Like, I don't know if anybody is behaving like the percentage of behaviors, the percentage of communication, the percentage of decisions that are integrated with somebody's sense of their own purpose. I don't know if anybody's batting at a higher average than Trump. That doesn't mean that I agree with him or appreciate it or I'm not afraid of what's happening to the Republican Party that I used to know. And all these things that I'm concerned about doesn't matter. Just taking the judgment out of it. Trump has a lot of integrity from those perspectives.
Yeah, amazing. So we've got the integrity game, soft skills for strong leaders. It's your 10-point model. You've got 10 questions or 10 bullet points on where to be in integrity, I guess, or maybe it's the steps to ultimate integration.
It's 10 points, 10 points that can be described in one word, but the points are sets of questions.
Love
So,
it.
like, for example, back to purpose. There's multiple questions there. What's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of your life? Do you have any answer to meaning of life? Any thought leadership in your life? I don't care where it comes from, but do you value life? Do you attach meaning to life? Do you appreciate life, or without meaning, you could waste life, right? Okay. So then what's the meaning of your life? And people will avoid that forever. Well, I'm searching for my purpose. Searching. Why don't you just choose and declare? It's okay if you change your mind next week. I don't care if your purpose is different next week than it is today. What I care about is every day without one.
Love that.
Right. So there's question sets just around purpose. Are you with me? And
Yeah.
then gifts is be the second point on the model. We talked about, your bitch slap moment at the age of 17 in front of the judge. It was a gift. So I'm here
Yes.
to say anything other than the average is a gift. Above or below is a gift, right? Rock bottom we could spring off of. That's a gift, isn't it? Okay. But the questions become, what's your mindset around receiving? What's your mindset around giving? What would you consider to be God-given gifts? What would you consider to be man-made gifts? And then what about your self-generated gifts? And are you integrating God-given, man-made, and self-generated? And then if you've done all of this mindset and categorical work, now how does that translate to competitive advantage? Do you have any idea what you do better than everybody else who also does it? Do you have any idea what you do that nobody else does? Do you have any idea, Mischa, why I said yes to your podcast compared to the ones that I've said no to? What's your differentiation? What's your competitive advantage? Why do people do business with you? Why do people hire you, raise you, promote you, want to hang out with you instead of everybody else that they could? Do you have that's one point on the model, but a whole set of questions.
Epic.
And there's
Wow.
and there's 8 more points.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's good. I want you to answer the question, but don't. Of why were you on my podcast? You kind of did, but that's all right. That was so
Well,
great. Like,
in addition to your sense of humor, your mellow disposition, your silky smooth voice, you also live close by. We can get the Hugular on soon enough when we meet on a heart-centered coffee jam. But there's a lot of value add, and I'm enjoying building this relationship with you, Mischa.
so good. Thank you for indulging me. That was incredible.
I felt an invitation.
And I'll take it.
Yeah.
Sometimes in life, you just need to hear some goodness, or I don't know,
Yeah.
however you want to
Well,
say it.
well, it's one of my mantras. It's not hard to be nice to people.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I don't, I can't criticize integrity from my own definitions of it, but I don't like that dude. He doesn't know how to be nice to people.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
Yeah. True. So it sounds to me like you perhaps saw more of a need to help people with in to be in integrity, to be better leaders, to move with more purpose, all these things. I hate to say move with purpose because that's kind of overused these days, but it is very powerful when you feel like you're in that space. Um, versus tension of life. It's more of like, hey, I've developed, I feel like I'm good at living in integrity, and I'd like to learn how to live better in integrity in my life, be a powerful example for my kids, my wife, who I help, things like that. So let's dive into this a little bit. And maybe I could ask you this too. Did you did you have an aha moment where you're like, man, this accountability is more of not hugular. It's not like you saw a need for niceness around it. Or does that question make sense? Or is there a question in there?
Uh, um, and I can't say a moment if that's, I mean, I've got a lot of moments where I came face to face with the power of integrity and accountability. You follow, where there was mirrors held up. You know what I'm saying? My conditioning, my early training as a coach. Like, I don't know if you've heard, well, there's Landmark Forum and all of this be your word stuff. But it's good, but to me, it just wasn't enough. Like, so for me, I'm the type of guy, I like to take something and then add to it. So like, what smart goal setting is one of the points on the model. If you've heard of smart goal setting, SMART. Well, I could break that down and tell you that it's good. It's better than nothing, which is what I had when I learned smart. But then I realized, oh, smart can be better. So I added an A and changed the R to make it my own, right? And to infuse more motivation and accountability into it than there would be otherwise, right? So I'm no different than anybody else that's trying to take the universal truths out there and put my own spin, my own stamp, my own flavor onto it. You reference God a lot. Well, that's the original intellectual property, isn't it? And so, talk to me about copyright this and trademark that, and you're stealing this from this. Look, it starts with God, and then the extroverts put it into their own words, and some of us monetize it, and some of us don't. So stop judging me and clean up your own side of the street. But the integrity game is new and fresh and different. But what am I doing? I'm piecing together so many things, all the universal truths out there. I'm just putting it together in a framework with freedom to make improving our integrity actionable. There's so many times that I've been confronted with my need to be 100% responsible for my own behavior. I mean, embarrassing. Are you asking me for an embarrassing moment? Like, do you want me to like get into details? I mean, I could tell you right now, I believe that my son didn't make all-star baseball games for like 3 seasons because not because of him, but because of me. My personality, my vociferousness, my holding the board accountable to their ethics, without their permission. You can't hold somebody accountable without their permission. So it's say, hey, this is out of integrity. Hey, these are political decisions. Hey, this is in all my effort to shine a light and transparent in the name of justice. I was right. I was right. I was right. But all these people just felt attacked, and they said, "Sorry, dude. Now your son's not going to make." I can't prove it. Nobody will ever admit it. But I think it's my. I think my son missed out on Little League baseball all-star games because of the dad, not the kid. Right, that's one. Never mind that he's on scholarship at San Diego State University's baseball team right now, and none of those other kids that made all-star games are still playing baseball. Never mind that the proof is in the pudding, and I was right that the kid's better than all the other. Never mind, right? Unbelievable watching them squirm and avoid eye contact and say, "Hey, congratulations on AJ's season." Well, I'm just happy he made the team. Oh, sorry. That's the resentment and bitterness and all that stuff that I've forgiven. I love everybody, right? But communication with my wife, parenting. I've you talked about sobriety. I love beer, and I've had too much to drink at times. I can go on the list where I haven't been behaving or communicating or making decisions in a way that were integrated with my answers to my questions, mostly because I didn't have answers to my questions yet. So now that I've got answers to my integrity game questions, oh my God, I've manifested. I'm back at San Diego State. I'm with my alma mater. I'm back in the classroom. I'm living my, I don't get, we talked about this earlier. I don't get paid thousands. I don't get paid a lot of money to teach classes, but I'm vibrationally wealthy because I'm doing what I love. You think Trump's really happy being in a courtroom because he gets the attention in the press conference? Cool. Well, put me in a classroom with learners and you'll see me dancing and happy and vibrationally wealthy. And we made up that term earlier in our pre-talk, vibrationally wealthy. You guys can all write that down, listeners.
So good. That's a great, great answer, Jeff. I think. Thank you for answering it that way. Very powerful. So you go out, you have this idea of I want to be more integral in your life, and you've had an amazing life. Anybody should go Google you and see what you've done, and so thank you for sharing what you've learned and are learning. But you go, okay, I've got this idea. I'm inspired for this idea for the integrity game. And how about this? You're inspired for it and you stay in integrity and you're executing on it, which is so, so powerful. But you go out there, you come up with your 10-point model. And I love this. You start interviewing 10 other people who are perhaps experts with or have a good model or a good framework for each of those
They
10
have subject
points, right?
matter expertise on those areas. And
I
I
love
call
it.
So the first year I did it in 2022, it was the 90-day challenge.
Yeah.
And then some smart marketers said, Jeff, nobody's doing 90-day challenge. People are doing 3-day challenges, 5-day challenges. That's just so not, resonating in them. I'm like, okay, well, I want to do it again. I want to, I have a goal of every fall running through the integrity game and inviting groups of people to come with me. But last year, what we did is I changed the name of the sessions to all-star sessions. You hear the connection there? You hear the integration? So now every week I'm for all-star sessions, all-star sessions. So all these people in the community are watching me interview subject matter experts on my book called The Integrity Game that was sent to baseball with my son on scholarship, even though I make those also. Anyway, I'm not uncompetitive, you follow. And I'm a human being. And so I can, I'll admit to being petty here and there. But the bottom line is it's a hey, it is what it is. Yeah, I'm doing all-star sessions. And an all-star session is where I interview a subject matter expert about one of the 10 points on my model.
Love it.
And
Pedro Adao does ridiculous 90-day or 30-day challenges and has tremendous success with him. If you've heard of him, Pedro Adao, the challenge guy, I think he goes by. But
Pedro, how do you spell? I
yeah,
haven't heard of him.
yeah. Pedro, it's Pedro, which is I
Yeah, I
think
get
what,
that.
yeah, and then Adao, I believe is Adao.
Okay,
Um,
got it. Noted.
yeah, yeah. Yep. Oh, it's Adao. Adao is his last name. But yeah, check him out. But what I was going to say
Yeah.
was, so you've started doing these challenges. You interviewed these subject matter experts. You go through the questions that are being created. You're being vulnerable. You're showing everybody the work that you're doing and affording or giving everybody the opportunity to do. I'm imagining you've been through a couple of cycles of this by now. Um, you've got the book. So, any favorite success stories or customer stories or transformations that people that have been engaged with you and your book have had?
Yeah, hang on. I'm going to ask you to restate the question. I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah. So you've put together the integrity game, your
Yep.
10-point model. You've got
Right.
subject matter experts to lead you through the 10-point things. You've done it yourself and obviously had transformation of your own and awarenesses. You've ran a challenge or two, or maybe I'm calling it the wrong thing, a workshop or two. You've brought people through
Yeah.
this model you've
Oh,
got.
yeah.
Any I don't I'm success stories, or what do people call them, case studies or testimonials, or favorite stories of before and after for students that you've had? Would you call them students or participants or
Yeah. Yeah. What's funny is I'm the biggest success story so far. I mean, like, because honestly, listen, here's the truth of it is very few people, as many people as heard the model, exposed to the keynote, taken notes on the 10 points, heard me speak, or been in a soft skill training where I used the keynote up front and then get them into their civility or their whatever their soft skill is that they need to learn, but I just phrase it as a matter of integrity. The truth of the matter is, and this is like something I'm gonna have to reckon with, there are very few people so far that have actually gone through and answered all 10 sets of questions and then shared those answers with myself or one of the coaches that I've trained, right? So I could tell you there's one woman I'm going to give a shout out to, Sue Matheson. She's an avid integrity game player, and she's actually co-author with me on this book, Get A Klu in 52 for speakers. And she's got some success not just answering the questions for herself to retrofit so she's more solid on her day-to-day decision making, which has advanced her career. And she's in Australia, Melbourne, Australia. Um, her sense of resilience, her sense of knowing exactly, like, in other words, she's not beating herself up as much because she's not people pleasing, saying yes to people because she has her own answers to her own questions. So she's been more efficient, more effective, more firm, more stable, more on point, more magnetic because her firm and polite and immediate yeses and nos are integrated with her answers to her question. But in addition to that vibrational, retrofitted state, which she's upright. She's, you know what I'm saying? In terms of she knows what she's doing in her career right now. But the other thing too that we worked on, which is fantastic, is in coaching and mentoring sessions with her, we use the integrity game to solve problems. We use the integrity game to solve problems. So we don't have a visual right now, but um, imagine shoelaces, right? Where there's like 5 holes down one side and 5 holes down the other side, and you lace them up. You go in one hole, out the other, and then stitch it up. You lace them together, right? So the 5 holes on each side are just the icons for the 10 points on the model. The laces are metaphorical for love, which is the adhesive that holds your integrity game together. Love and the willingness to be vulnerable, which is answering the questions because now you can be held accountable. And um, but here's the idea. When we look at it in a model and have a graphic for it for my workbook, but imagine at the top the 2 laces are open, right? Like one lace is here and one lace is here, and then right, they're not tied. So visually, we discovered together, Sue and I, that it looked like a funnel, right? And then underneath, like starting right here, that's where the 5 points come down. And so, right? And so now we realized what we realized together, because this thing is emerging and building and growing. We realized you could put any noun at the top of this thing. So it's not just for an individual to answer questions for themselves, but how about the team? How about the culture? How about the marriage? I can say, all right, what's the purpose of my marriage? What are the gifts in my marriage? What's the potential for my marriage? So now anything that's out of integrity can be retrofit by applying the 10 integrity game questions to it.
Love that.
Well, it loves you too. It's mutual.
It's
So
beautiful.
I've had some success where somebody's come to me, Jeff, I've got this problem with career transition, and my job this, and I don't know the money, but the opportunity, but the unknown. And I'm like, let's play the integrity game. What's the purpose of your career? What are your competitive advantages? What do you see as the potential in your career? If you answer these questions, you'll know whether to take the damn job or not. The only reason you don't know whether or not to take the job is because you haven't been answered the questions yet. So, in my opinion, the integrity game can retrofit individuals, teams, projects, any noun. Any noun can be run through, if you apply the 10 questions and answer the 10 questions for any noun, you will end up retrofitting that noun and creating resilience for that noun, So we start with ourselves and then.
It's amazing. I think, and I know we're running close to time here. Um, Progress, not perfection. And I think about any model, any large scale model, and let's just call this a large scale model getting into integrity. We're
Yeah.
going to apply what we can and what needs to be applied at the time. So the illusion that someone's going to knock out all 10 things perfectly is just that. It's
There's
like,
no perfection about it.
right. So you're
There's no
clearly
such
having,
thing. There's no such
yeah.
thing as perfection.
Yeah, yeah. So with that in mind, I'm imagining people are having breakthroughs along the way. So
I hope
at
so.
any point in any point of the 1 through 10, they're having breakthroughs. And
Yeah, once you understand that, like, hey, does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? Another way of looking at it is there's 10 points of entry into the game. You don't have to start with purpose.
yeah,
We could start at the bottom of the model. The last thing, service. Who are the populations that you want to serve? Who wins when you win? If your cup spilled over, who would benefit from that? Who do you want to be serving? If you didn't have to earn another dollar the rest of your life and you had unlimited funds, who would you be? Where would you be volunteering? Where would you be spending your time? What projects would you be engaged in? What populations do you want to serve? Who are the underprivileged that you want benefiting from your wins? You answer that question, and now you're in the game,
I love it. You know what
right?
I'm
You
thinking?
you can
Yeah, very
enter in
cool.
goals, you can enter in potential, you can enter in gifts, you can enter in learning. What's your proactive learning? You want to learn the hard way, or do you want to get on a proactive learning path? What do you know that you want to learn? If you answer that question, then we can start it. If you answer any one of the questions, you're on your way to beginning to answer the rest of them. So you can
Okay,
pick.
okay. Look, this is amazing, and I want to make sure we go through this before we're done because this
Sure.
is amazing. Okay, I just had a thought. One is you could literally go, here's the 10 things. Hey, class or individual, uh, organize them in the manner that you is most important to you,
You,
right?
yeah.
Right?
Or rate how good you feel about all of these on a scale of 1 to 10, and right, how fulfilled are you in these areas, or how solid are you about your answers to these questions? And right, you could do, yeah, choose your own
Love it.
adventure.
Amazing. but you have riffed on probably four or five or six of them and given a question and thought for each one. So finish them out for me before we're done here. So
Okay.
you've riffed on a bunch of them, but
Yeah. Well, without riffing, let me just
or
identify.
not riffing. Sorry, excuse
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. Purpose, gifts, potential, goals, strategies, tactics, and resources, word/commitment, action taking, action, proactive learning, accumulation, like of accomplishment. What are we accumulating? Update your resume, update your LinkedIn profile, be always aware of your achievements. So that, and then finally, the last piece of the model is service. Who are you serving? So what's your purpose? What are your gifts? What's your potential? What are your goals? What strategies, tactics, and resources do you need to get moving on that? What are you committed to? What do you do? What must you learn in order to, make progress on all the above? What have you accomplished, or what's your accumulation of accomplishments to date? And who wins when you win? What are the populations that you're serving? If you have answered to those 10 questions, you're going to have a better day.
Amazing. So good. All right, everybody. It is, let me find the site again. It is tigarena.com. tigarena.com. And
Yeah, what your listeners will find on there is an opportunity to get 2 complimentary coaching sessions with an Integrity Games certified coach. And first of all, they only get the second one if they like the first one. But if your listeners reference your name or your show, I will do everything in my power to make sure I do those sessions personally rather than sending them off to a coach I've trained.
amazing. And you had said a little bit about that before we get started on the two coaching calls. The reason for two coaching calls is to
Well,
avoid the whole, go ahead.
Well, to be funny, to avoid what I call enrollment dysfunction, ED, enrollment dysfunction. I mean, on one end of the spectrum, there is the seminar industry where you get thousands of people in the room. They say, go to the back of the room and sign up for your free coaching session. And then there's a boiler room, a telemarketer that's a sales guy that's like, hey, do this exercise in 27 minutes. What's that behind you? All right, sign up for coaching. That's one end of the spectrum. Numbers, 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 numbers. They'll get their numbers because they're running so many people through that system. Nothing wrong. That's one end of the spectrum. That's not me. The other end of the spectrum is people that offer one complimentary session and everybody knows it's a veiled sales pitch. So they show up to that session with their guard up, waiting to be pitched. And so no real good coaching ever comes through. And then the 30-minute session becomes a 47-minute session. And then the coach is still in their process. And we're running out of time. You said 30 minutes, right? Well, we'll go over just a couple minutes more. I need to finish my process. And then it becomes about the coach learning how to run their process than it is about serving the person. And then the coach ends up saying, are you ready, Mischa? Well, how about I just coach you for free? And then when it works, then you refer people to me, right? Enrollment dysfunction, right? Try to build a mansion on top of quicksand. Nobody has skin in the game. They both cancel on each other because it's not money now and everything else is more important. And there's about 8 or 9 reasons why I offer 2 complimentary coaching sessions. And by the way, if your listeners want a 20-minute video that I shot a couple years ago on all 8 reasons, 8 or 9 reasons why I offer 2 instead of 1, 2 instead of 0, and 2 instead of more than 2, then they can send an email to info at getaklu.net, getaklu.net. In the subject, just put 2 comp sessions, ? Reference the show, and hi, Jeff, or whoever gets this email, send me the video, right? And we'll send a 22-minute video where I break it down and I go into my little 22-minute stand-up routine where I'm calling out what I consider to be enrollment dysfunction. But among those reasons is accountability is a big deal, man. And there's no way, like you wouldn't buy a car without test driving it. You don't buy ice cream without the little pink spoon. So
Amazing.
everybody out there that's trying to sell coaching without giving a little pink spoon of accountability isn't selling accountability when they sell coaching. And for me, if you get into coaching with me, you're getting into accountability, and there's no way that you're going to get into that unless you experience it. And I can't give you a risk-free trial of that without 2 sessions. I got to get you to commit to something in session 1 that then I again get to hold you accountable for in session 2. So you have the experience of committing, you have the experience of the self-talk in between sessions, knowing that there's another session coming up and you're going to be asked, yes or no, did you do it or not? And from that taste, from that little pink spoon of what coaching is really all about, then by the end of the second session, you'll know, we'll both know. So I joke around and I say, hey, it's up to 2, then maybe we're through. It's up to 2, then you'll know what to do. It's up to 2, then you'll get a clue.
Jeff, amazing. This has been so much fun. Everybody can go to tigarena.com, tigarena.com. And Jeffrey also gave his email. So follow up with Jeff, jump in the fray, get into integrity, jump into the game, tie those shoelaces, all those different things. Jeff, I'm going to hit stop. We'll say goodbye offline.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.